Kit Kats can read. Hey guys, it's Katie and welcome to another video, and in today's video I'm going to be doing my April TBR. So I've kind of done this a little bit differently this month. There's less books I think on this TBR. Obviously not necessarily going to read all of these books, but I'm sort of putting myself towards the challenge, and because it's been more of a sort of random selection, they are like some books that I wouldn't actually be normally picking, so I'm very excited with this list. So first of all, I'm going to begin with the book that I'm currently reading, How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. I actually borrowed this from the library and I've only got it on a 2-week loan, so I've got a week left to read it, and I've been very highly anticipating to read this book because I've had nothing but good things about it. So now I'll begin with all of the book choices that I've got. So for a book that I have chosen to read myself this month that I really want to read is Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. This is the first book that is in a series, and it's a sort of hit and miss series, and I remember reading the first chapter and I actually enjoyed the first chapter. So I know this is kind of a dystopian novel, and I do have the other books in the series as well, but this book was in my very first book haul that was on BookTube, and so obviously I need to get this book read before the end of the year as well, but I've got a real big urge to read it. When I was looking at my books, this was the one that was jumping out at me, so I'm looking forward to beginning this. Next of all, because I didn't get around to reading this book in March, I'm pushing it on to April, and you know, it's going to be very ambitious because I've got another book in this series to read as well, but I feel like I can do it, and if I put my mind to it, and I do really want to. So I need to reread City of Glass by Cassandra Clare so that I can catch up with everybody else. I've got the audiobook of this as well, so I'm going to try and audiobook it too, so I can just speed through it a bit faster, whilst I'm on my car journeys to Ben, because it's like half an hour car journey, so to there and then to work, or to there and to here, that's easily an hour's journey. So I could get this book read easily in April, and I do fly through these books well easily. I just haven't had time in the month of March, so I'm just pushing it onto April because I do want to get this read. And then moving on to the group reads that we're reading this month, because we are reading the Mortal Instruments series all together, including the Infernal Devices, so really it's just the whole Shadowhunter world. So for this month we're all reading Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. We're reading these in publication order because I'm told they tend to make more sense when you read them in publication order, so we're doing it that way. So we would have read the first 3 in the Mortal Instruments series, and we go on to the first book that's in the Infernal Devices series, then we go back to the Mortal Instruments, and then we go back to this one, and so on and so forth. But I've heard really good things about this trilogy, and I haven't actually read this trilogy yet, so I'm very excited to give this a read. It's a prequel to the Mortal Instruments series, but I've heard about Will, and yes, so I am definitely excited about this. So now I'm going to move on to a challenge and also an ebook. So I have several TBR jars. I've got an ebook TBR jar, I've got an old ebook review jar, I've got an upcoming review jar, I've got my generic TBR for my young adult books, and then I've got one for my adult books, I've got one for my physical review books. I've got so many, so I've decided to pull one out of each jar this month. So from my ebook TBR jar, I managed to pull out The Madman's Daughter by Megan Shepherd, which I actually own a physical copy of as well, which I did get a physical copy for review quite a while back, if I'm honest though, so it's quite bad that I still actually have this book. But I've had interesting things about this book, but not a lot of people have spoken about it as of late. And also I had a challenge. I pulled out 4 challenges from my 52-week challenge for this month, and I also pulled out a TBR jar challenge, so one challenge for each month of the year. And so the challenge that I pulled out of the 52-week challenge is to read a book that you've been meaning to read, and this, to be honest, is a book that I have been meaning to read, so I thought that this would be perfect. And I've got it as an ebook as well, so I can sort of switch between the two, so that comes in quite handy. The next challenge, and I'll place the picture of the book over here because it is an e-arc. Now this book comes out in April, and the next challenge that I pulled out is to read a book that is published in 2018, so this was perfect because because obviously I need to read some review books. And so the book that I chose to go towards this is Sam and Ilsa's Last Hurrah, which is by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan. So these two have teamed up together again and they're bringing out a new book. It's not a very big book, like by the looks of things, like on my Kindle, so it should be very, very easy to read. And obviously when these two team together, like their past books haven't been that big, they're literally around like 200-250 pages, they're not really that big at all. So I'm very excited to give this book a read, and this book actually comes out on the 5th of April, so not too long, so I am looking forward to getting this read at the beginning of April. My next challenge is to read a book by an American or Canadian author, and so I pulled out of my review book physical TBR jar Roomies by Sarah and Tara Altebrando. Now Sarah, she is American, so this is included for this challenge, so I thought like that would be perfect, and this has been on my TBR for quite a while, so this is perfect. So from my archived review jar, and I'll place a picture over here as well because it's an ebook, and this is Mr. Fahrenheit, and this is by Michael Martin, I think. And so this is a sci-fi book that about these kids that shoot down this UFO and they find things out about it that aren't what they seem. So I haven't heard anybody talk about this, so it would be interesting to give this book a read. And yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. Out of my monthly recommendations TBR jar, I pulled out A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, which I imagine a lot of you guys are like jumping out in the air at the moment. So many of you guys have read these books last year, because basically my monthly recommendations jar is based on everybody's top books of the year, and so for this book to come out, there could have been several times this book was mentioned, especially like with the third book. So yeah, I'm very, very excited to give this book a read. I remember getting this book out of an Owl Crate before I stopped my Owl Crate subscription, so I'm very, very excited to give this book a read, as I've heard so many fantastic things about it. Out of my TBR bowl for my young adult books, I pulled out The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson, and I've been meaning to read this book as well. It's a little bit of the chunker, but I have enjoyed Morgan's other books. I'm really sort of looking forward to reading this, especially like with all the dogs on it, and I've heard really good things about this book as well, and I love the pug on the front, it's awesome. But yeah, I loved Since You've Been Gone, it's one of my favourite contemporaries, so I'm definitely looking forward to giving this one a read. Another challenge that came out of my 52-week challenge is to read a book that you can read in a day. So I was having a look at books that I really, really needed to read, and so I pulled out Queens of Geek by Jen Wild. Now I did put this on last month's TBR, but I didn't get around to it. But this book has like around 250 pages, so I could easily read this book in a day, and yeah, it's like floppy, and I've heard really good things about this book, so yeah, I feel like I could read this book in a day. And then my TBR jar challenge for the month is to read a book with 500 or more pages, and I am very overly ambitious to put this book on my TBR, but it's long overdue and I've been meaning to read it, and I so want to, and that is A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. The very first book is in the series. I'm so sorry I haven't read this book yet, guys, but I've had this was in my first book haul as well, and yeah, I've been meaning to read it, and yeah, I've plonked it on a TBR finally, so I'm looking forward to actually giving this a read. I was talking about it the other day, and I've just had a real urge to read it, so it's perfect that this book came out with the challenge. So then we have random.org, and with all of my young adult books, which I do have the most of, if I'm honest, I did a random.org on it, so I placed the picture over here of the number that came out. What actually came out was a book that I've been meaning to read. So number 9 of this series came out, but I need to reread the book before because I haven't read this in years, so I just need a little bumper refresher. And so number 8 is Aisha Goes Wild. So basically these books are about like these teenagers on this sort of island where like not a lot of people live on, and honestly it's just about their lives, and they all end up like getting with each other and then breaking up, and then things happen and things like that, and it's honestly such a fun series, and each book isn't that long at all. Like this book is like 230 pages, like it's crazy. So I read this a few years ago and I just want to reread it and get back into the series. There's like 28 books in this series, and yeah, look how small they are, it's so cute. But yeah, they're like really old, and you can tell how old these are because the price of this book is £2.99. like, what the F? £2.99, the price of this book. That is absolutely mental. And considering like the books these days are like £8, £9 now, it's crazy. So yeah, I'm looking forward to giving this a reread. And then out of my adult TBR jar, I pulled out Me and Mr. Darcy by Alexandra Potter. So yeah, this is a nice sort of cute chick lit sort of novel, so I'm glad that this has come out. And I like the fact that there's books on the front of the cover, so she's obviously a reader. It just says on the front, every girl is looking for her Mr. Darcy, imagine if you found the real one. So yeah, I'm super looking forward to reading this. And it's not that big of a book, 340 pages, so yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully getting around to this book. Now obviously with every TBR they can be subject to change. I can be switching around the challenges because I am a mood reader. I like to read books that I get in the mood of reading. For example, last month I ended up reading a book that wasn't on my TBR. I was craving a chick lit, and so I plonked one on my TBR. So things can happen. So I tried to give myself a very sort of mixed TBR for the month of April, but I'm still like looking forward to picking and choosing from these books. And there's loads of these books in this TBR that I do really want to read, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to be sticking to it, but I'm really excited all the same. So if you have read any of these books that I've mentioned in my TBR today, do let me know down below in the comments what you thought about them, or if there's any books that are on your TBR that you've seen me mentioned in my TBR, then do let me know down below as well. And also let me know what you guys are planning on reading in the month of April down below too, because I always like to know what you guys are reading. But thank you very much for watching my video as always. Keep smiling, keep reading and be happy. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done already, and if you want to see more of my videos and this face. And I'll see all of you guys in my next video. Bye!